Greetings, brothers and sisters. I want to do an update on my Journey series videos. A few people have commented wanting to know if I was going to do more of them or interested in what's going on. And I just completed the 74th edition. And the 73rd edition I was making, it's more of a, sort of an investigation of the Brighter Mind scam and some other things I had left over. And I don't want to publish that now. I don't know if I'll do that in the future, but it's not important to everything that's going on. And so the reason I haven't published the 74th version is because, and those of you guys who don't know this, who have been watching the Journey series videos, there was a scam run through the Heartfulness organization, Brighter Mind scam. And this is not the opportunity for you guys to say it's a cult, all these guys. I mean, it's just not appropriate, right? All you people who didn't like Heartfulness before and don't like that I do it or whatever it is, right? There's no reason to comment any Christian saying, oh, Jesus is the only way. No reason to say any of those things, right? I understand what you believe. It's not appropriate. It's just inappropriate for you to say something about this here. This is me telling the people who watch the Journey series why I haven't posted. And so the reason I'm posting here is I don't want Heartfulness people watching my videos. Not people who started because I talk about it here, people who heard about it through my YouTube channel, but the traditional Heartfulness Abhyasis, Saj Marg Abhyasis. I got a taste of what it was like for them to watch my videos. It was very controversial. I said some things that were, like there was people in chat rooms, according to other people, I didn't see it myself, calling for my execution, right? There was this Brighter Minds program that the president of the system, Dodgy, endorsed that said that kids could read with their feet and smell colors. It was a scam run by other organizations. It had been debunked in India, and it was taking advantage of the pressure for academic success for children in the country. So it was a really scummy kind of a thing. There's so much pressure for academic success for children in India, and their parents put pressure on them, and the kids feel all this pressure, and they were, marketing as something that was, you would give kids superpowers, and it was a real clown show. And I couldn't believe Dodgy and Heartfulness got involved with it. And there's a lot of craziness going on in India surrounding the organization, right? Just not, a lot of conflict. And so I got a great comment I talk about in the 74th edition where a person commented, Paul, and, Paul says this, Paul, people can't read with their feet. And Heartfulness responds to me, execute him, right? Now, again, I don't know if that actually happened, but I was told by a number of people that there was calls for violence and things against me. I'm fine or whatever it was, right? I didn't receive any threats, anything personally, but I did receive a mysterious package from India that I didn't open. So there's all these things. But the stress level that I experienced from having, Dodgy was watching my videos and, all these people who ignored me and ignored my suggestions and my offers of help over the years. And, after like a couple of weeks of that, and people were writing me and exposing more information, and there's a battle within the organization, and people are being, a woman said she was threatened, a housewife. I mean, it got really ugly. And, I was telling my son about it, and he was like, that's not Heartfulness at all, right? Like, that's not at all what Saj Marg's supposed to be. And my son, he knows some of it, right? He grew up in the system. He doesn't practice now, but he was kind of, interested in the story because it's kind of compelling, right? And he was like, wow, all the behaviors that are being exhibited by the organization are really rough, right? Really go against the principles of the system and a real fall from the way it used to be. And so, the meditation, the transmission, the cleaning, the services offered have been transformative in my life, which so many of you guys know. It's a reason why my videos are worth watching. It has made me a better person, better video maker here, just so many great things have come from it. And I still fully believe in the transmission and cleaning. But the organization is just suck right now for me. And then to have all these people watching my videos, and people were trying, they don't want to speak up for themselves, the ones that are against dodgy, and it got so stressful for me, and I was like so unhappy. It was hard for me to make other videos, and I just it was a complete bummer. And so I have disconnected myself from everything heartfulness, and it's been great. I do the meditation. There's a preceptor that showed up who there's a whole thing that they want to talk to me, a whole thing like that. And this preceptor is now giving my wife and I group meditation over, a long distance group meditation on Sunday. He's included me in his group meditation. There's 3 people who have heard about heartfulness through me that go there. And so I've known this guy for a while. And I'm still getting sittings on the app because, I shouldn't be punished for their failure, right? The transmission, the sittings are great for me. And so I'm going to continue doing the practice. But I have, unsubscribed and blocked every kind of avenue where I would get information about Heartfulness, the crappy Heartfulness YouTube channel, the Instagram page. I mean, everything where I'd get Heartfulness information, all these newsletters and emails and things. I've just disconnected from them, and I feel great. I didn't realize how bummed out I was all the time from seeing the way that the organization's being run right now. And so that's been a big relief. And I am so grateful for being ignored before, right? Because I offered my services and I wanted to participate in the organization, and it would have just crushed me. I would have been a miserable person all the time. So I want to go back to being ignored. So I'll start releasing my Journey series, the 74th one, and, I'll continue on making new ones after that. But I'm just, I don't want to have just this negative relationship with the organization, because I don't want any relationship at all. I'm not going to go to gatherings anyway. I was ostracized. I mean, part of, I'm losing out on some things, which kind of sucks, but, I'm not going to travel to India anytime soon, and probably never again, considering people want to execute me there. But it's, it's just an ugly kind of thing, and I don't want any part of it. I just want them to forget about me. So again, if you're a person who hasn't watched the Journey series and you don't like Heartfulness already, no reason to comment. It is, if you're a Christian who wants to say how great your thing is and why you should have been doing that all along, don't comment. That's just unnecessary. The Heartfulness system has been great for me, and the organization has been great in the beginning, and then really up until very recently where it's gone off the rails. And things happen like this. Hopefully that the organization will recover, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And there's a lot of people who are now becoming dodgy truthers or Heartfulness truthers. There's a difference between Saj Marg, which is the original name, and now this Heartfulness thing. And so there's almost like a war between Saj Marg people and Heartfulness people. Some of it has to do with the caste system and, people who didn't like dodgy originally. And so there's all this stuff there. And they're truthers, and they think they got to get the word out. And I was trying to tell them, I've been through this already with the truth community. Most of the people are going to reject your information. Most of the people aren't going to agree with you, no matter how much of a slam dunk you have. And the Indian, the culture there, the social system, the way the people are, they don't even have a real truth movement there at all, right? It's one of the places that, they're scared of their government, and they have this respect for elders thing and all of it. And so it's not a place where critical thinking skills and a truther mentality has taken root. In the guru culture, you don't say anything bad about your guru. The guru is a representation of God and also an elder. So it's a whole, and I just, as far as I'm concerned, it's so heavy, so stressful, all of it. And they're not going to change anything. There's nothing to change. There's no avenue to change the current leadership of the Heartfulness system. There's no way to do that. And so, it just becomes a level of dealing with the way it is. And my way of dealing with it is going back to where I was much happier when I was being ignored. And now that I'm ignoring the Heartfulness YouTube channel and all the crappy videos and all the negative stuff about it, I feel so much better. It's just, I'm doing my practice. My meditations are better. The 9 o'clock prayer is better. I mean, everything that I do there is better. So I talk about that in my video. But I don't want to release it and have those people descend back on my channel again because it just sucked. Like, I don't want them here. They're not fans of my YouTube videos. They're not going to watch this video, right? They're not going to watch, my regular videos or my videos on my other channel because they just care about the Heartfulness ones because of their own personal interest, whether they're a pro-dodgy person or an anti-dodgy person. They don't understand me. They don't understand my humor. They don't understand the American, view of things. I mean, it's just very clear the cultural issues have manifested a problem as well as everything else. So, like, I just want to do this in an introduction. Like, I'm still making Journey Series videos, and I'll get back to them at some point. But the one thing that's important for me is I just don't want to have the stress of having those guys watch my videos and think about me and, whatever. Like, I want to remove myself from the equation because, I know from past experience that there's nothing that's going to come of it, right? There's no change that's going to come of it. Maybe a few people will watch the videos and they'll find out, things that they didn't know. But, they're going to find that out eventually because it's pretty obvious that the Heartfulness organization is like really gone into Suckville. All right, so that's the little introduction here. All right, let's get into some of these other subjects here. Okay, so I got a Britney update with Madonna, some weird stuff with Madonna. Everything with Britney and Madonna is weird. Alec P. Baldwin addresses the hammer again. He doubles down and, just like Alec Baldwin do. I have another kind of big news story I want to get to about the PPP loans and celebrities. A few more things. The big one making an appearance. But let's start here. One of my viewers sent me a tweeter about this guy. Samuel Benjamin Harris is an American philosopher, author, and podcast host. His work touches on a wide range of topics, including rationality, religion, ethics, free will, neuroscience, meditation, psychedelics, and some other things, right? He is somebody who, here he was, I think was on a show with Ricky Gervais. I don't remember this show here. Absolutely Men. So I kind of remember that. I didn't watch it, but I think I remember that. Here he is with Neil deGrasse Tyson. Who is Sam Harris? Writer admits ignoring Hunter Biden laptop. Podcaster Sam Harris. There is a conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump in 2020. So he admits to something here. He's not a CNN employee or, a politician, but he admits to something that I want to discuss. But he starts off with this.
I mean, Hunter Biden, at that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared, right?
He would not have cared.
Like, there's nothing. First of all, it's Hunter Biden, right? It's not Joe Biden. But even if Joe, whatever.
He could have had the corpses of children in his basement, and he wouldn't have cared.
Scope of Joe Biden's corruption is, like, if we could just go down that rabbit hole endlessly and understand that he's getting kickbacks from Hunter Biden's deals in Ukraine or wherever else, right, or China, it is infinitesimal compared to the corruption we know Trump is involved in. It's like,
wait, are you saying this MNFer just said Hunter Biden could have corpses of kids in his basement and it wouldn't be as bad as Trump?
It's like a firefly to the sun, right? I mean, like, there's just, it doesn't even stack up against Trump University.
Trump University is worse than Hunter Biden having corpses in his basement, or foreign governments buying Joe Biden's influence through his son when he was vice president is worse than Trump University. Like, this is how warped these MNFers are, right? This is how off their moral compass is. That they would, he's saying no matter what Joe Biden had, the goal is to get rid of Donald Trump. If that's what he's going to say here.
Right. Trump University as a story is worse than anything that could be in Hunter Biden's laptop, in my view, right? Now, that doesn't answer the people who say it's still completely unfair to not have looked at the laptop in a timely way and to have shut down the New York Post's Twitter account. Like that's just a conspiracy. That's a left-wing conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump. Absolutely, it was. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely it was, right? There was more than that. And, I'll get into that in a bit.
Absolutely, right? But I think it was warranted, right? And again,
You think it was warranted to not to go against? I mean, this is their big thing, right? Liz Cheney said that the electoral process being tampered with by Trump is the worst thing. This is the big lie, right? And so this liberal guy is admitting, which anybody could see, and I'm not talking about the voting machines. I'm not talking about any of the ballot stuff. I'm not talking about what happened on election night. That leading up to the election, the way the media and everybody else handled this. Well, I'll come back to this. I want to talk about this in a longer session at the end, right? Let's get through this, and then I'll come back to all this. But it's admitting to what everyone else is railing against Trump for, which is election fraud.
Again, it's a coin toss as to whether or not
Sam, I'm sorry.
that particular piece.
I'm really sorry. I was the one that said we should move on, but you've just said something I really struggle with there, which is
the kids in the basement.
No, fuck the kids in the basement.
F the kids in the basement. This guy just said. This guy just said F the kids in the basement. So that's these guys don't care. I mean, think about these liberal efforts, right?
I'm interested in democracy. You're
kids in the basement, fine, but democracy, don't tamper with that.
saying you are content with a left-wing conspiracy to prevent somebody being democratically re-elected as president.
Well, no, I'm content. Well, but the thing is, it's just not left-wing, right? So Liz Cheney is not left-wing, right?
Now, Liz Cheney said the same thing, that she was going to do everything in her power to make sure Donald Trump doesn't get reelected. She just said that. And this was the attitude beforehand. This is what this guy just said. There isn't anything he and these other people wouldn't do. There was no line they wouldn't cross to keep Donald Trump from getting a second term.
Liz Cheney is doing everything in her power.
Conspiracy to prevent somebody being democratically elected.
But there's nothing conspiracy. It's not. It was a conspiracy out in the open. But it doesn't matter if it was. It doesn't matter what part's conspiracy, what part's out in the open. I mean, I think it's like if people get together and talk about what should we do about this phenomenon. If it's like if there was an asteroid hurtling toward Earth, and we got in a room together.
Yeah, but that's not see, democracy is we're deciding what's an asteroid. Like, I didn't vote for Trump. I'm not a Trumper. And I know an asteroid's going to hit this Earth, whether it's Trump or Biden, because it's already hit. Our system has been hit by the debt-based system collapsing, immorality setting in, people being completely mentally ill, I mean, on a whole, and being dysfunctional. That's the asteroid. And then whatever else happens. But our destruction's already happened. So I don't, But some people believe Trump was the asteroid, and other people believe Biden is the asteroid. And that's what elections are about. Who's the asteroid, right? And if you manipulate that, and then you cry about Trump trying to manipulate it afterwards, then, that's just complete hypocrisy. Liz Cheney and all these people, the media, everybody, social media. This guy's admitting to at least something we all know to be true. And I'm not talking about the votes. People get into the votes. It's stupid. The elections are manipulated long before any voting takes place.
With all of our friends and had a conversation about what we could do to deflect its course, right? Is that a conspiracy?
So I'm going to start off with the worst thing first that this guy has done, the sins that this guy has committed. And I'm not a believer in sins the way that, it's taught in the Christian tradition, but it's a good word for what he just said here. The worst thing that he said, that it was okay for he and the people like him to cheat the game, to rig the game, in this case the electoral process, to avoid what they thought was a meteor-like, possible extinction-like event that would have been the Trump presidency, his second term. He was a shoo-in to win the second term. Everybody knew it before COVID. He had a great economy, and most people are like, oh, Trump isn't as bad as we thought he was going to be. because the Trump didn't really get much done. He wasn't liked by the establishment, the Republican establishment. Fox News was going to bail on him, right, during the election. And so Fox News could have covered Hunter Biden. They didn't, right? I mean, they're covering this now, but they suck. They refused to cover something that was factual. I mean, like Tucker Carlson did, but the rest of Fox News division didn't. And so nobody really liked Trump in terms of the establishment. Both parties, Republican, Democrats, old-time politicians, they all wanted to get rid of him. And so their thought was, we can't let Donald Trump get elected no matter what we have to do to fix the system, rig the system against him, exclude one of the biggest stories of all time, that a former vice president and a guy running for president and now a guy who is president's son is a crackhead who impregnated a stripper named Dallas from Arkansas. I mean, that's just like, it's the biggest story in politics ever in America and all the scandals that go with it. Hunter Biden is a rare gem of a story. And the way Jimmy Kimmel violated his code of ethics as a comedian, right, is, the kind of thing a comedian is almost sworn to do, when he had Hunter Biden on his show and he just got on his knees and serviced the guy instead of asking legitimate questions, right? I mean, it was just such an absolute mess, and hilarious one at that, right? And so the issue here, though, getting back to what I was saying, is when you think that you have to rig the game and cheat and lie and, in this case, break democracy because the people, if they are allowed to vote for who they wanted, would choose somebody that's the wrong person, then you've already wrecked the system. But the system was already wrecked before that, because this is an American trait, unfortunately. Because at some point you have to let things go and surrender to them. And Americans don't surrender. People in the East are fatalistic. They believe in destiny and fate, and they don't try, right? They don't try to impose their will. They're told their whole life, you got to accept your stars. You got to accept your destiny. People in America are told you can do anything. And don't let anybody stop you from fulfilling and realizing your dreams. And it's, both things need to be in balance. Like, some part of you has to accept destiny and God's will, but some part of you has to work and insert yourself and impose your will. And you have to learn how to balance both those things, right? It's something where at some point you say, all right, there's nothing I can do. And I've been able to do that here on my YouTube channel with the Heartfulness organization that I mentioned earlier. When you realize there's no pathway to changing something, or at least now, there's no pathway open, and you just have to accept it and be grateful for it and realize even though something appears to be evil, it's something you have to endure in your life. You work to change something, then you reach a point where you're saying this is just God's will. It's not quitting or giving up. It is accepting what is. And it was God's will. It was natural for Trump to get reelected, right? But they had rigged the system so much because they rigged it against Bernie. Twice they rigged it against Bernie. Bernie was going to beat Hillary, but Hillary, who had saved the DNC from bankruptcy, they were $12 million in the hole from Obama, and she bailed them out with the provision that she got special treatment and was assured the nomination. And so she raised $1 billion to Bernie's whatever he had, right? And when Donna Brazile came in and replaced the disgrace Debbie Wasserman Schultz, she wrote an essay saying that they rigged it against Bernie. This was a Democrat who was so much of a Democrat that they gave her the position of the head of the DNC temporarily. And she came in and she called Bernie and told him so much, told him as much that they had rigged it against him. But then when Bernie was going to beat Joe Biden, remember Joe Biden came in 4th and 5th in the first caucus in Iowa and primary in New Hampshire. And he wasn't even, he was incapable of winning. And Clyburn saved him in South Carolina. And then all these Democrats came out, powerful Democrats came out on CNN and MSNBC and say there's no way Bernie, as a socialist, can beat Trump. And so we have to make sure he doesn't win. They said this out loud. And so they got Klobuchar and Buttigieg. They gave him a deal. And they got Elizabeth Warren to stay in because she was taking away votes from Bernie Sanders, and they got Jojo Magoo over the hump. And so they rigged the election against Bernie Sanders. And, there was a whole HBO thing about the voting machines that was supposed to be about Trump. It was called Kill Chain or something like that, an HBO documentary about the voting machines, all these things. But none of those things are as important as the media coverage and the way that they make it so only certain people can run for the presidency, or Congress or any of these things. You need money and you need the media to say you're a legitimate candidate, right? You can't be some fringe person. And so when Hillary Clinton cried about the Russians stealing the election in 2016 from her, she was talking about how the DNC was hacked and Podesta was hacked, and how people were posting videos that were, and information on the internet that was crazy fake news conspiracy theories. And she had CNN and MSNBC in her hip pocket, and Fox was only mildly behind Trump. And yet she and the intelligence community did this joint report, CIA, FBI, NSA. And I, skimmed through most of the report, and about a third to like 2/3, I mean, it's more than half actually, like almost 2/3 of the report is about Russia Today, the YouTube channel Russia Today, which is nowhere near as influential as CNN and MSNBC. And they cited Russia Today and the hacking as ways that Russia interfered with the election. But in reality, what they were saying was, we're manipulating the voting base with our authoritative news networks that are just a branch of the government, the corporation, fascism, whatever you want to call it, right? That our regular news is, okay. It's okay to be manipulative with that. And this guy's saying the same thing in this tweet, in this video he put out, right? Like, it's so effed up. But it's not okay for individuals to voice their opinion on social media and influence other people in a way that would change the outcomes of elections. So that's the hypocrisy, right? Even though the internet is something everyone agrees on is a good thing and the free flow of information, but now they're trying to stop people from expressing themselves and control the media and the news and all these things, right? And this is what this guy wanted to do. And so going into the summer of 2020, it was clear that Trump was a shoo-in to win. So COVID hit, and they exacerbated COVID, and they used COVID against Trump. They worked Trump on COVID. They hid Jojo Magoo because he was senile and a complete, unlikable person. And they did all the things that they did and hid information like Hunter Biden and refused to cover something that was a story. And it's your duty as a reporter to do what you're supposed to do, right? You're supposed to do it. There was a comment somebody left yesterday that I covered, and the person was trying to get my motivation for making videos. And I was thinking about this great scene. I'm not sure what the name of the movie is, but I'll show you the clip if I can find it. But it's a movie called Blast from the Past, because I just grabbed the scene, right? I just went back and found the scene. And I went through the movie, and it's Christopher Walken explaining to Brendan Fraser. Brendan Fraser is his son. And so there was something that hit outside their house, like a plane crash or something. And Christopher Walken thought it was a bomb. And so they went into a bomb shelter, and he raised his son in the bomb shelter because of radioactive fallout while the rest of the world moved forward, right? And then as an adult, Brendan Fraser goes out into the world. And I didn't remember any of this, but there was homeschooling, and there was all these things that were very much truther things. They're kind of mocking it, Christopher Walken being a crazy character. But there's a great scene where Christopher Walken's explained to his son that why a runner has to, run from first base to second base, in baseball. And he says, well, why do that? And Christopher Walken says, because he must. And then later on in the movie, Brendan Fraser is watching a softball game and he gets it and he says, "Yeah, you must," right? I'll show you the clip here.
Listen, I'm only going to explain this one more time. The runner on second goes to third. He's out there.
Why?
Because he's forced out. It's a force.
Then why go there?
Because he must.
I finally get it! You have to see it to understand it! Because he must!
So you understand this? The reason why this guy and everyone else should have covered the Hunter Biden story and every comedian should have mocked Hunter Biden is because they must. It's their job. You just don't have a choice. You have to do what you're supposed to do. You can't not do that, right? You can't avoid your destiny. You can't avoid what's supposed to be done. Your job is to cover stories like Hunter Biden, the candidate's son, is involved in corrupt deals. He's a crackhead, and his laptop just got released right before the election because it was supposed to, right? It was supposed to be a story. It was supposed to affect the election. But they prevented it from affecting the election, and therefore they went against the natural order of things, God's will. They manipulated the game, and therefore they destroyed democracy. I mean, it was already destroyed. There never really was democracy like we think about it because, there was only certain people who used to be able to vote, right? In the olden days, the founding fathers. Women weren't able to vote. People of color weren't able to vote, right? And so it wasn't a real democracy. Indentured servants weren't able to vote. There was all these people who weren't given the right to vote. So you can't call it democracy. And then the influence of power and money. And so democracy has never been what everyone thinks it is. But certainly now, when you game the system like this and you say, all right, this is going to happen, and the only way to stop it from happening is to cheat. And when you cheat, which is there's so much cheating in the world because of this reason, because you're not willing to accept what's going to happen. You're not willing to accept what has to happen, even if it's a bad thing. Sometimes you just have to let things run their course. And as much as you hated Trump, there's another side of the story. And so with all the ways they cheated, all the things this guy said, the horrific things saying that even if Hunter Biden had dead children in his basement, they should ignore the story. I mean, that's how far they were willing to go. There's nothing that Hunter Biden or Joe Biden or anybody could have done that would have been something they wouldn't be willing to cover up as long as they got rid of Trump. That was their mindset. And I said that at the time, right? I mean, the media and even Fox News, their whole goal was to get rid of Trump. Long before anything happened in the voting process, they were assuring the America that they were going to do this no matter what it took. They were going to get rid of Trump. And they have the audacity to come out and say the big lie, right? I played the montage yesterday of the big lie, right, with Liz Cheney. They have the audacity to say that Trump tried to corrupt the voting process when they were doing that, manipulating the election, and they've manipulated elections in other countries. Our government has, CIA. I mean, they've done this. They admit to doing this. And so they don't care about democracy or the electoral process or people or letting things run its course. They want to control things by any means necessary through, deviant behaviors, assassinations, and all kinds of, misinformation and lies and all the things that they're willing to do. Because they know they're on the wrong side of things, and if they let nature run its course, our system would be destroyed. And that's the bigger problem. I've said this before. If the people who are in control of the system just let things run its course, the system would completely implode. So they have to do evil stuff and prevent things from happening and, manipulate and cheat and lie and all these things to keep the system going. And this guy is, in his pathetic little way, owning up to that, right? Maybe he doesn't fully understand what he's saying, but that's what he's saying. Okay, so I want to get to Alec P. Baldwin here. And so he has addressed the whole thing in a deceptive way. So what happened was he said he never pulled the trigger, which I showed you the clips and a couple of videos. Don't want to do it again. He said he pulled the trigger. You guys, he didn't pull the trigger, and would never pull a trigger, and would never point a gun at somebody and pull a trigger. And so this is what it says here. Baldwin has repeatedly said that he pulled back the gun's hammer as far as he could go without cocking the gun and released the hammer. Now again, if he was conscious of doing that, then that's messed up, right? And and it's not true, but it would be the same as pulling the trigger, right? So if you pull the hammer back, it is eventually going to cock, right? Like if you have some other sort of one of the more modern guns like a Glock, you have to pull back on the top of the gun to load a bullet in the chamber, right? You pull back on the slide and there's a bullet that goes into the chamber. And so in this case, the bullets are always in the chamber in a like one of these 6-shooter revolvers. And you pull the hammer back and it eventually is going to cock, right? But he's saying in this report, let me read the rest of it. A newly released FBI forensic report said the weapon could not be fired during FBI testing of its normal functioning without pulling the trigger while the gun was cocked. The report noted that the gun eventually malfunctioned during FBI testing after the internal parts fractured, which caused the gun to go off in a cocked position without the pulling of the trigger. Lucas Nikos, an attorney for the actor, told CNN on Sunday the FBI report is being misconstrued. So Alec, in his defense, is reading his lawyer's interpretation of the FBI's report and saying that the gun mechanically broke down after repeated uses. It didn't break down. I mean, I'm assuming they're using the gun Alec used. And so when it came into them, it was intact. And if you pulled the hammer all the way back, the trigger would lock. Now, there's a point where, some kind of mechanical breakdown, the parts wear out, that the trigger doesn't lock anymore. And so you could pull the hammer back and it's not going to lock and then it's just going to fire on its own, right? Especially if they, did it 1,000 times, right? And so I'm not going to read the FBI report, but I'm not going to trust Alec Baldwin's lawyer to interpret it for me. The media might be misinterpreting it because that's what they do too. But all of a sudden the media is misinterpreting things. When Trump said that, he was, of course not. Everything Trump does is wrong, right? And so Alec is getting the same treatment, or claiming he's getting the same kind of treatment from the media. And he says, the most important part of this article is the first sentence. No one has ever maintained on my part that a cocked gun just went off without pulling a trigger. The gun was never cocked, never. The hammer was pulled back as far as it could go without cocking the gun. When it released, it caused the gun to fire. Not cocked, no trigger pull. Pull the hammer back only and release. Who put the live round in the gun? Right? And this person, you tell him. See, nobody believes he didn't pull the trigger, right? What he's trying to bank on is some 1 in a million chance that there's a mechanical malfunction or some way that he won't be called out as a liar, right? Because he said in the interview he would never point a gun at a person and pull the trigger. He would never do that. And so his excuse was, he talked about fanning with Chris Cuomo, but fanning is when you continuously slap the hammer back. He was slapping his hammer, and he didn't. But to do that, you got to hold the trigger down, because the trigger makes the hammer lock, right? And so what they're saying here is, to make the bullet fire, you have to pull the hammer all the way back. That's what the FBI report says. That's what so many gun experts have said. And what Alex is saying is you could pull it all the way back before it cocks and let it go, and it fired. And this is the same guy who said after the gun fired in his hand, he ran around outside and didn't know for 45 minutes that the person had been shot. Right? Like he didn't know till 45 minutes later, even though he had a gun go off in his hand. And he's supposed to be a trained gun expert. you know, he lies and pretends for a living. That's what he does, right? He's an actor. And so, you know, his dad was a marksman and trained his kids on firearms from a young age and how to use them safely. And so he just doesn't want to admit that he lied, right? He doesn't want to admit that he pulled the trigger. I mean, that's what this is all about. And so, come on. Like, we all know he pulled the trigger. We might not have the facts to prove it, but if there's some sort of, if he's counting on like some mechanical breakdown that happens after a gun is worn out, as opposed to an actor realizing that him pulling the trigger is, I mean, that's prison worthy, right? Regardless if he was told it was a cold gun, it's a lot better if he was just pulling the hammer back and it just accidentally went off that way. But if he pulled the trigger, then he's screwed. So Britney J. Spears, I don't know what that is. Pringles, as good as it effing gets. S for Spears, remember, that's my name before I was married. I don't know what her name is now. And then these here she is with Madam Expiration Date. Reflecting back, okay, so this was 2.5 years ago. I was going to post it, but the extremely low quality is not professional. I didn't post it. But I found it yesterday on my phone somehow, and it was weird because it was Madonna's birthday. This is when I used backdrops and shot photos with a stick for 2 years because I was scared of people, LOL. Just kidding. Not really. Anyways, I did in respect to Madonna because, well, I think you already know that she came to my freaking wedding. Honestly, still can't get over it. Happy belated birthday, Madonna. Psst. I know it's repetitive. It was a work in progress. I'm weird as F, and I never finished. So again, this is her talking about herself the way Alec Baldwin does when she's talking about Madam Expiration Date's birthday. But here's her Instagoal. She's got, I don't know what she's doing here. All in good taste. And I don't know what this is. Some kind of new thing. She's making out with more strangers. There's some other weird thing she's doing. I don't know. This is her grill here. But, you know, she went out of her way to wish herself a happy birthday and throw herself a birthday party. But then somebody had sent me this weird thing with Lady Gaga. And look, they turn. But what's great about this is Madonna breaks first, right? And then Lady Gaga gets her cue from Madonna. And somebody sent me that like a week ago, and I never got around to showing it. Okay, so I had a bunch of other stuff to get to, but my voice is getting hoarse. I mean, I already did a lot of voiceover. So I'll show those things tomorrow. The big one, I got, you know, some stuff to say about the big one. You know, the big one, the Kim Kardashian as well, the whole thing. You know, it's like the post office. I'm always making videos. If I don't cover it today, I'll cover it tomorrow. Only spirituality will save this M&F world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.